So, welcome back to a bit gamey and a quick review of Lancer Miniatures 20mm early war French, World War Two, obviously. Yes, so I've got a bunch of these Pegasus plastic French infantry, which were fine, but I needed support. So I've got an anti-tank gun and 3-inch mortars and 2-inch mortars, etc. For their support options, just to see what they were like. And these are very good, very nice. These Lancer ones, not based properly yet, so you can see that maybe. Yeah, so they're very nice figures. They're I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say. They're not great, but they're the right size for me because I've got a small table, and so I wanted small figures. And it's like the choices are, 15mm, which are perfectly fine, but didn't suit for me. And you got the 28mm, which are great. I mean, there's a lot of 28mm figures which are the best looking basically, but they didn't suit for me because I wanted to get lots of tanks, but sort of not lots of the same kind, but lots of different ones for the early war tanks. And the best source for that is the kind of airfix scale, sort of 176 or 172. So I got these so I was aiming for these these technical 20mm figures because that's the best source for getting all the tanks. But then there's this three. It's kind of like three categories: 28 and 15 at the two ends. Well, 28, 28 and 15 at the two ends. But then you've got this kind of no man's land in the middle. Between 15 and 28. But they vary a great deal in that kind of that range. They might be called like 172 or 20mm or whatever, but they're slightly different. And I'm going for these Lancer early war French and the British version. Their early war British are very good for that halfway house. With all the plastic model tanks and stuff. For me, so that's the reason for getting it for me. So it was wanting a certain kind. It's wanting the tanks that was a deciding factor, and then looking for infantry that suit the tanks. Because they do vary quite a bit. Because say the one on the right there that's the AB quote 20mm, which I'd say is more like 25. And they're really nice. They're great. I'm going to get some more of these for sort of kind of skirmish battles. 1-to-1, where each figure represents an actual person. Whereas for my sort of my kind of games, I'm looking more for at sort of company battalion scale. And these are just right on a small table. These are just right. What was I going to say? Yeah, I was just giving my point. If you're looking for the most aesthetic figures, then go for 28mm or possibly the AB 25mm. And if you want, get as much on a get the range and the numbers on the table, the more sort of believable, then the 15mm is good. But in that middle range is a bit of an issue between the figures. And the same, Lancer 20mm early war British and early war French are good. They're not perfect, um, but they're good. One of the issues is the officer isn't particularly great, but that's one of the few things. But they got most of what you need, and they're mostly good. And yeah, I don't know. Is that good? Is that a review? I suppose it's a review. I do. Oh yes. That's the other point I was going to make is when you're looking at if the figure's at 20mm or 25mm or 24 or whatever, is if they're being modelled on an accurate anatomy, the legs might be half the model, and say it's 20mm, and then say 10mm is the legs up to the waist, and say 3mm is for the head or whatever, then you end up being very squashed in the centre part. This is just my guess from what I've seen. So all the stuff that you want them to be carrying is all going to be squashed into this kind of like 6mm of their torso, and that's so what you get is you get sort of some things which are 20mm and anatomical. So what you get is it gets very squashed. The torso part of the model gets very squashed, and everything's thin because they're like a body shape for an actual kind of of the right proportions. Then it's all too thin and too spindly, and there's not enough room for all the stuff on the body. So I think, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know. So I think what happens is you get is people will sculpt them, and they'll squash the legs down a little bit. I mean, this is just my impression, so I could be wrong, but that's my impression. So whereas in other figures, like these Lancer ones, they kind of squash the legs down a bit. So that seems to be two options. You get the anatomical scale, where they're thin and squashed and stretched rather, and then you get this kind where they squash the legs down a little bit just to give them an extra couple of millimeters for all the stuff they're carrying. So that's just my guess, and that's why these AB figures, which are more anatomical, but they're closer to 25mm. I think they're sold as 20mm, but they're more like 25mm, and you have the legs the right sort of height. Because on this one, if you see the from the helmet down to the waist is about the same. I don't know if you can see that, but the legs are a couple of mil shorter on the Lancer one, and I think that's a good way to do it for 20mm. Yeah, I don't know if that made any sense or not, but yeah, the Lancer 20mm early war British and early war French are good, in my opinion. If you're that sort of person, if you're looking for to use these figures with FX style tanks, or when I say FX, I mean that kind of general scale or whatever it is, 172 or 176 or whatever. The Lancer early war British and early war French. I don't know about the rest of them because I haven't tried, but just for those two, I think they're good. AB are good as well, but for slightly bigger. And obviously, I've got some 28mm, but I've got them by mistake when I was supposedly ordering 28mm, 20mm, and so I keep them somewhere. I can't find them because I put them somewhere so I wouldn't be tempted to paint them because they're so nice. I was going to be tempted into getting 28mm. Anyway, blah blah blah. I'm rambling. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, Lancer 20mm early war French, quite good. Not 100%. There's a few things not quite right. Like, you know, there's no senior officers, and the officer isn't great. But there's another company that can fix that for you, which I'll do. I'll do next. Okay, I don't. It's a lot of rambling. I don't know if that made any sense to anyone, but okay, do a bit.